Welcome back to the Behind the Well Show. Roger Abel. I've got Elias Randall here with me today. Excited about a fun show. We're going to talk a little bit about why rules of thumb just really aren't the way to do things. And, why a lot of people tend to get, what we would call financial advice that's wrong for them or bad financial advice. It does exist out there, Elias. And unfortunately, when we look at social media and things like that, we tend to see a decent amount of it.
Bad advice.
Yeah, it's kind of everywhere. There's good advice too.
The internet is, there's plenty of bad advice on the internet. Probably doesn't just have to be the financial advice business. I bet there's a lot of bad advice on the internet in general.
Yeah.
And if it's not on the internet, it's not true.
Tide Pods were a thing, right?
Tide Pods, wow.
Remember when kids used to eat Tide Pods because it was a thing? So interesting. So I know your daughter, she's on YouTube a fair bit, and so is mine.
Mm-hmm.
I actually go review her history. I don't think she knows it exists yet. She probably does. But I go review the history to make sure she's not watching certain things like eating Tide Pods or doing dangerous stunts, because those exist out there on YouTube. Do you filter that for your daughter?
I think so. I don't go review it. I probably should.
Yeah, I review it. What are you watching? What are you doing? What video are you making? I review it all.
Yeah, she spends a lot more time making videos, but she doesn't have a YouTube channel yet, so that's what she wants. She wants to get a YouTube channel so she can upload her videos.
I know who can help her.
Yep.
Set one up for my daughter.
Yeah.
One up for yours. But I said bad financial advice, and I think sometimes people view that as like dangerous advice. But sometimes it can just be less optimal or advice that isn't right for the specific person. And I don't know if you remember, about a week ago we were talking. I think you had a new customer come in for a review or for an interview, and you'd mentioned that he wants to be all equity, but his current broker or advisor, whatever this individual is calling himself or herself, has him like 50% stocks and 50% bonds. And we started having the discussion about how an advisor's bias towards certain things in the industry could actually skew that.
Yeah, I think that's a good situation that highlights that. I think when it comes down to it, you have an investor that wants to be an equity growth investor. They have the right risk tolerance for it. They have the right goals for it. They have the right time horizon for it. And they're in what I would consider a balanced portfolio, and really a portfolio designed for someone who's taking a lot more income than what they currently are and what they need to take. And his story to me was he's been requesting for the last 5 years to just be invested for growth, and the firm he's with want him to invest in this 50-50 balanced model. But I think that's due to their biases. They believe someone at his age should be invested more conservatively than what he wants.
I think this is the most common type of advice that's not necessarily right for people that I see. And it's when advisors form their own biases. And honestly, we've probably been guilty of it in the past too. I remember about 13 years ago, I had an individual and we went through the financial plan, showed him the optimal asset allocation, all the things we do, put him in that portfolio. But at the end of the day, he just wanted equity returns. So we had to make adjustments. He's like, I understand your portfolio says this, the software says this is my highest probability of success, but I want the most money possible that I can get. I want to go to 100% equity. But I think sometimes advisors don't always listen to their customers as much as they should, because, they're coming to us for advice, so we should give it to them. But at the end of the day, if they're comfortable with the risk, they don't need income, they know the holding period needs to be, 6+ years, you have to be adaptable. But I see this one a lot, and not everybody has loss aversion. Some people can manage it. And I think one of the things we've transitioned to, Elias, that helps with this is, when somebody comes in, I take their pot of money that they have, let's say it's $2 million, whatever the number is. And I play a game. I said, what would you do if this went down $200,000 in the next, if your account went down $200,000 in the next 60 days? And I let them talk. Like, I wouldn't do anything. And I keep making the number bigger. What happens if it goes down $1 million? What would you do? I think I'd panic. Okay, great. Now I'm starting to get, from a real risk aversion standpoint, where are you? Because people are numb to percentages. If you say, hey, what would you do if your portfolio went down 15%? Well, I wouldn't do anything. Well, if you had $2 million,
what if it's 15% of $4 million?
Yeah, what would you do if this went down $600,000? Yeah. And it changes as the numbers get bigger. People's loss aversion, a lot of times I see becomes, they become more averse to loss because they've kind of already got there. They don't have to put it at risk.
Yeah, and I think this starts for investors at $1 million. I think
the numbers get real at $1 million.
Yeah, I think too many people get anchored to their account being $1 million for the first time. And then that's when I think that's one of the general, like, kind of triggering events that then people start to become too conservative. And maybe not for everyone, but people, like, if you're not fearful of fluctuation, and we say loss, right? Well, really, we're talking about fluctuations. If the fluctuations in your account don't bother you, you believe all these companies will continue to be good at making money, then do you really need to be more conservative? Are you going to be taking any income? Are you going to be spending any of the money? So I think there is an argument to be made that not everyone does have loss aversion, and for those investors, they should be able to invest for growth if that's the way they want. And we have clients in their upper 70s that
they're all stock.
Yeah, they don't need any income. They don't take any income, and they purely want to be all stock market investors. So who are we to tell them, well, no, that's not a good way for you to invest because you're 77 years old? That's a pretty arbitrary thing to say to someone.
I think that's advice from 30 years ago. I think those customers of ours, clients of ours, or families we work with that have higher allocations to equities at older ages, I think they've come to realize I'm never going to spend this money and it's really going to be transferred to the next generation. And their time horizon could be 30, 40, 50, 60 years, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, certainly the fluctuations don't matter.
Right, if it's for them. I read another interesting kind of piece of not bad advice, but less than optimal advice for some people. And I think this is another advisor skewed bias, is that everybody wants fully liquid accounts. Our industry is sold to people, hey, you want liquidity. There is actually a study out there, as a behavioral economics research study, that showed that some people preferred illiquid accounts. And they offered this study offered investors a fully liquid account and one that had only a 10% or one that had a 10% early withdrawal penalty. 39% of the people allocated their money to the one with a 10% early withdrawal penalty.
What do you think the reasons are for that?
Well, one, I think sometimes people want the money in a space that's not easy to get.
Just psychologically?
Psychologically. So I'm going to make it even better. When the penalty increased to 20%, the semi-illiquid account became even more attractive. 45% of the people had their assets there. When the account became fully illiquid, with no early withdrawals allowed, it attracted 56% of the assets. And I believe some of this has to do with scarcity, right? Like, hey, if they're limiting access, then I want it more. But if you think about the industry in general, it's, fee-based fiduciary accounts, managed accounts, fully liquid, all those different things. When that's the number one priority, it does limit access to certain types of investments. And some people are okay with having, or actually would prefer to have, accounts that are less liquid, which is ironic to me because every time we think about it, I think you'd agree, we believe people want liquidity. If you have 5, and here's what the study doesn't talk about.
Okay, do you think those are good? I guess people elected that in a study, but are those good reasons?
Well, I think the thought is if you go do a private equity investment, it's not liquid. A hedge fund, not liquid. So the consumer may see investments that aren't liquid as superior because of the name or the connotation associated with being illiquid in nature. Doesn't mean they're better.
Wouldn't you like to understand how you get your money out when you want the money?
I sure would. But I'm just saying, so think about people allocating money to an annuity. What's the number one ding on an annuity? That it's not liquid, right? For X amount of years.
Yeah.
Well, for some people, not being liquid will save them because they're in that product that they need to hold for 7 years, which arguably gives them a 7-year time horizon before they can do anything. Whereas if it's in a liquid product, oh, wait, market's going crazy, I'm going to make a bad mistake. I mean, that's always kind of been part of the draw, I think, and advantage of, I won't say advantage, but a feature of an annuity is that, hey, there's a holding period before you can get at it without a penalty, and causes people to be less emotional about it.
I can see that side of it.
And I'm not saying one is good or bad, but I just believe that us as advisors always are leaning towards totally liquid products when there may be a client or family where having an illiquid product might make sense for them. I mean,
I'm sure there are situations.
Let's think about it. If you have $5 million, how much liquidity do you need? Do you need all 5 million liquid?
Most likely, no.
There you go. But I just think as an industry, we tend to lean towards, 90% of what we sell is liquid products, probably. Fully liquid.
I'm sure.
So I just think that was another good bias. And I think that the third one is that, we always kind of believe people struggle to save. But that's not always true.
Not everyone, but in general, that is a true statement. In general, people struggle to save money.
In general, but not everybody. And when we deal with
like the 10% of people that we get a market to, they're not struggling to save money.
What's that?
I said basically 10% of people are good savers.
Yeah, but here's what happens. If 10% of the people you work with are great savers, which I'd argue that more of our customers that we work with are good savers.
They're in the 10%. Yeah,
okay.
They're in the 10% of the population that does a good job saving.
Okay, so they're great savers. But your bias is that everybody, 90% of the people aren't great savers. So what are you mentally already geared towards? Making sure you become a great saver. They're already great savers. So advisors, I believe, are ill-equipped to figure out how to help the tightwads. I think we do a pretty good job of it. But if your bias is that you're a bad saver, how are you going to approach most people? Where I think we do a good job in that financial plan, we try to help and show people, hey, maybe you are saving more than you need to. You could loosen the reins and do some other stuff with your money. But if your bias is all people are bad savers, guess what happens? You're going to treat even the tightwads as bad savers.
I could see that. Yeah, I can see that. I think, here's what I think on this. Everyone's biases impact their thinking and their communication and everything they do. I do think and you probably feel the same way about yourself. I have a knack for talking with someone and I can tell. It doesn't take me very long of interacting with someone where I know whether they have some money, they're a good saver, or they probably don't have any money and they're probably living paycheck to paycheck and not investing.
Takes one discovery meeting to find out.
Well, yeah. But now, in general, I do assume that probably 9 out of 10 people I talk to are not very financially savvy, and that's okay. I'm sure I have plenty of friends that are, it's just percentages, right? Like not everyone's a good saver and invests their money. So yeah, I guess that is my bias. But if someone wants to have a conversation with me about working with us, I guess my bias at that point in time is like, there's a reason they want to talk to us.
So
there's something going on.
Here's what this makes me think about this bias. I have, and this is how advisors need to make sure we're not biased in this direction. I had some customers come in probably 3 years ago. They're in their 40s. I mean, and they are absolutely kicking butt. I mean, been maxing 401ks for the last 15 years. I mean, they're killing it, right? And the wife asked me, she goes, we have 3 kids and they probably make like $170,000. Pretty good money. Not rich, but good money for our area. 3 kids, maxing everything out. I mean, just saving every penny they can. They live in a 1,400 square foot house and their kids are sharing bedrooms. She goes, do you think it'd be okay if we bought a new house?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be okay. But if I didn't understand their situation and they hadn't told me their living conditions, I'd be like, yeah, you probably should just keep saving. But we had a full understanding of, I've done the financial plan, and I actually modeled out, I'm like, if you guys don't ever save money again, you're going to be just fine. So it allowed them to open up their pocketbook and go buy a new house. I'm like, you have 3 kids sharing a bedroom. That kind of seems ridiculous when you have this amount of money. But the husband was so concerned about saving every dollar they could, and she was too, for retirement. We just had to demonstrate to them they could go buy a new house and still be financially okay in retirement.
Yeah, so there's a percentage of people out there who you can argue are most likely saving too much money and should spend a little bit more. Well, so I agree with that, but those people are exception. Those people are exceptional. There's not that many people out there that are saving too much.
Oh, I agree with that. Out of the total population, they're in the 1%.
Yeah.
They're not in the 1% of income or wealth, but they're in the 1% of, I've done everything right that I don't have to save anymore at age 42 years old.
Right. And we got it. I mean, we absolutely have a handful of them. And people would be really surprised. There's some folks, I can think of a few families. They're both under 50 still. And I've told them before, you guys you should just start spending some more money. But like it's hard to get people that are like that to start spending a lot more money. I mean, yeah, they might maybe do a couple more trips or something, but they've been so responsible. They have no debt. House is paid off. They've been maxing all their accounts. Like their habits are ingrained. So I can encourage them to spend more. But if they already have a lifestyle that they're accustomed to and they don't have any want or desire for more lifestyle, like what are they going to spend more money on?
You know what this reminds me of? This is where rules of thumb can actually be dangerous. Yeah. We talk about, rules of thumb being dangerous from a distribution standpoint. You could potentially underspend a lot in retirement. But this is the flip side. They took on a rule of thumb. I need to max out my 401k, max out my 401ks, max out my Roth IRAs. And that's great advice. But they're still under the rule of thumb that I'm going to save everything I make. And it's one of the things that advisors can do and provide a lot of value that's not quantified is, how do you quantify the value to that family that we walk through a financial plan, demonstrated to them that they could massively ease back their spending and still be significantly better than they need to be for retirement? How do you quantify the value there?
I don't think you can. It's peace of mind.
It's
You've
one of the
improved
benefits.
your life, and obviously being responsible with your money is important to that family. So they were able to make a decision that they otherwise would not have made without that.
Guess who's quantified it?
Who?
Vanguard.
For the value of advice?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen their study before.
I think it was on, well, no, it's their new one.
They have a new one.
It was in Barron's here recently. So for the past decade, Vanguard's been researching and been trying to figure out and measure how much is financial advice worth.
What is it? What's the answer? This is according to Vanguard.
So according to Vanguard, the latest study based on, they surveyed 12,443 investors. 7,746 of them had advisors. And the study suggests that clients may be underestimating the softer, less tangible benefits of working with an advisor. And I think that is the number one thing most people don't recognize are the intangible benefits. I think people's connotation when they work with an advisor is, I'm going to make more money. And over the long period of time, you should be better off from a return standpoint, but not necessarily because they're picking better investments. 3/4 of the advised clients, so clients who had advisors, said the financial advice saves them time, a median of 2 hours a week. That's how much people with advisors said it saves them, which it probably does, because what it does is it's not just from doom scrolling and going through the stuff, right? Because that's what people do. It's, if you're managing your own account, you feel like you have to do what? Work harder. You feel like you have to do something. That's the number one thing it does. It delegates that job to an advisor. The people who were interviewed said the annual cost per worker who delegated to an advisor was $5,950 to $6,775 in lost productivity.
It's a pretty good chunk right there.
So if you got a client, let's say you're charging a 1% fee on $600,000, the advisor definitely paid for themselves just in your time of not having to do something. That doesn't factor in the coaching and all the other stuff. There was a Vanguard, I think, originally released this study back in like 2017 or 2018. And it actually broke down each individual allocation they could and how much an advisor was. It's called How Much is an Advisor Worth? I'm sure if people Google it, you can go find the PDF on the internet. But it put the advisor value between 3% and 4% per year. And a lot of the value came through coaching, through hard times, and what we do, putting together financial plans so that people don't make a bad investor mistake and get out of the market at the wrong time, or, try to navigate some tax situation differently. And, were you on the radio show with me yesterday when we were talking about an individual called in or sent in a message that they bought a stock and it was highly appreciated, so they probably bought. But it was up.
I wasn't on that. No,
okay.
We filmed a different episode. I wasn't on for that one.
So let me ask you a question. You invest $10,000 something and it just goes through the moon. You bought something in 2012 for really cheap, and the $10,000 turned into $500,000.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to diversify from that. What do? You don't have an advisor. What do you do?
Call Premier Investments.
That's what you should do, but what do most people do?
Google search. I don't know.
Well, how do you get out of the investment?
Just sell it.
Take the capital gain.
But you think people are just going to sell it before they figure out what that's actually going to mean or do?
Likely. They're going to say, what happens if I sell it? Say, I got to pay tax on it, right? So one of two things will happen. One, they pay the capital gains, or two, they'll do nothing. Then they run the risk of it moving backwards, right?
Yes.
There are ways advisors can help you get out of that. There's tax efficient ways to get out of it. Well, if an advisor helped you diversify out of an individual equity and save you money on taxes, is that a return on your investment like you would see on the line item?
No, it's not a return, but it is value.
Value. And I think that's what this is about, is that there's so much value that's intangible in nature. And the only thing that consumers can see is tangible value. They can't see intangible. It's not seen. Can't recognize it.
Yeah, I agree with that. And it's probably, I guess it probably takes years of interacting with people to, I hope our clients see our value like the way we do and in that way. But I'm sure at some level they just look at their returns and that's how we get measured too, which 90% it is what it is.
You know what, though? I think that it should be that way. Your returns shouldn't drastically be different than the stock market.
Yeah, you should. Yeah.
If you have 100% of your money in the stock market, you should be a little below or a little above, depending upon how you allocated it, right?
Yeah, if you're taking that kind of risk.
Yeah, it's risk adjusted. Someone asked the other day, how do you beat the market? I said, you got to take more risk. Simple. Like if you want to beat the S&P 500, it's likely not going to be that you're picking better stocks. You're going to have to pick investments that have more risk.
To outperform. Yeah.
To outperform. You're taking more risk. If you buy one stock versus 500 in the S&P 500, that's more risk.
And it could work out.
Could work out. You're right. You could get lucky. You might have picked the best one for a while. But who knows what it's going to do long term. And part of the coaching that its advisors really help people do is not make detrimental mistakes to your retirement accounts. And I just saw this. I don't think you were able to read the article, so I'll be able to get your reaction to this. Let me just ask you a question since you weren't able to read it.
Go ahead.
Do you think more or less Americans see their 401ks as a rainy day fund?
Probably more.
Yeah.
I mean, I think everyone knows, hey, if push come to shove and I had to access some money, I can raid my 401k to get it. I'm there. Like if I really absolutely needed money, like I would raid my 401k before I'd give up my house. I know that.
So check this out. Last year, 4.8% of workers took hardship distribution for financial emergencies. Only 2% did during the pandemic. What could the financial emergency be?
And wasn't there something waived in the pandemic too? Like, couldn't you just do it and it didn't even?
I don't know if I remember that, but part of what happened is they've made the hardship easier to withdraw from.
Well, here's the reason that it's higher. Yeah, it was only 2% during the pandemic because there was stimulus money.
You know what this goes
There was
back.
stimulus and now there's not. So when people need money, they got to get it from somewhere.
Yeah, but okay. You're right. There was stimulus money, but if you lost your job, stimulus money wasn't enough to live on.
Well, but you would have been getting unemployment.
I guess, yeah,
plus
you're probably
stimulus
right.
check.
But either way, that's almost a 3x increase, 2.5 time increase.
Well,
here's a more shocking one.
Maybe
maybe
that's part of the reason there's a bias out there that people aren't great savers.
You're right. All right, ready for this one? Vanguard Group. Going back to Vanguard. What's the percentage of people who leave when they leave their jobs, liquidate their 401k? Not transfer, not roll over, liquidate.
20%.
30%. A third,
Almost
33% liquidate. And part of it is because we've made it easier to get money out of these things. And policymakers argue if there's not early access or access to these funds, people won't participate. Well, let me ask you a question. If you had a pension, how much early access do you have?
Zero.
It goes back to what we talked about earlier. Liquidity isn't always a benefit. Most people would be significantly better off if their 401k at work had an illiquidity feature. Because
to the account. Yeah.
to the account.
Okay.
If you're using as your personal piggy bank, you're never going to hit retirement. We're just giving people too much access.
I think there's
you got
probably good
IPers? If you got IPers in Iowa, how much access do you have?
None.
Guess what? Guess who has a pretty good retirement in Iowa?
IPers.
State employees
Yeah.
that have, Social Security and a pension, and we give them no access to their money. So we know people can do it. So why do we let them break in early?
Yeah. To me, I think if you could elect, I think that would make sense. And based on that survey, it does too. But if people could elect to make their 401k illiquid until retirement age, I bet people would elect to do that to kind of protect themselves from themselves.
I don't think so. I don't think enough people. Yes, some.
Some people would do it.
All right. Hourly workers earning 50 to 75,000. Okay. 42% cash out their 401ks, then they leave an employer.
Yeah, I mean,
they don't see value in the 401k. They just see it as money. And it's probably a lack of education on how investments work, or it's not enough resources. But I think that's one of the things that we've talked about a lot is people's inability to save is because we're giving them access to their money. I get it's your money, but sometimes people have to be saved for themselves. And, when we had a pension system in America up until 50 years ago, no one had any access to the money. They're fine.
Right. Well, yeah, but I mean, people have to have access to it, right?
Maybe we could just make it illiquid till 59 and a half. Would we as a society be better off if 401ks were fully illiquid? I mean, qualified dollars.
Individuals would
And I'm
be.
just throwing it out there. I'm just asking a question. I'm not saying I'm a proponent of this. Just if you had qualified dollars were 100% illiquid until 59 and a half. I'll give you an example. I had to call someone today. We have 50,000 on credit cards. 45 at 50 grand. They got a couple $100,000 saved. They're like, I think we're going to take out all the bases from our Roth IRA and do the rest from the 401k and do a loan.
Okay.
If it was illiquid, would they just find a different way to pay for it?
Their credit card debt?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They'd find a different way. But instead, they're going to go raid their retirement. And
that's the easy way out.
Yeah, it's the easy way out.
And it doesn't fix any habits that got you to that place.
Think about what they're missing out on. Right. I'm going to do the math. So 50,000 over, let's say, 21 years, get them to 66. At 10% a year, their money doubles every 7 years, roughly. Rule of 72.
So 3 doubles.
3 doubles. 100, 200, 400. That little debacle right there is going to cost them $400,000. Potentially. I mean, obviously, that's based upon really, easy math. Likely not that. Could be less, could be more.
Yeah, it's
but either way,
math, but it gets you in the ballpark.
But it's not fixing the root problem. Their core problem is we have a spending problem. And I told them, I said, okay, if you do that, that's fine. I said, but you haven't fixed the problem. The problem is you racked up $50,000 in credit cards. What are you going to do to fix that? Like 50,000 is the symptom. The root problem is you can't control your spending. How are we going to fix it? And they make $180,000 a year.
Yeah, there should be enough money there every month to get that squared away.
Yeah,
get your cash flow positive. Yeah, how did they end up with 50,000 in credit card debt?
Well, I don't know. I didn't ask that many questions, but they have kids in athletics and sports, and they mentioned they have several different cards. So I'm assuming it happened a few $1,000s at a time. I put it on card A, I put $4,000 on. And then on card B, I did 5. So I really only feel like I have $4,000 or $5,000 of debt because we haven't combined them yet. Psychologically, people get a bill like, I only owe $4,000. And then they get the next one, I owe $3,000. They're not adding it up. If they were keeping track of it, it wouldn't have happened. I'm sure that's how it happened because they said they had like 6 cards. Well, that's how it happened.
Yeah. You got to get that. You got to get that down to. Actually, it sounds like these people shouldn't have a credit card at all.
You know what my
pay it
advice
off.
was?
If you can't,
my
pay it
advice
off,
was
you can't
pay
have
it
one.
weekly and get down to 1.
Yeah.
You can manage 1. You can't manage 6. How do you manage 6? Well, clearly they can't manage any. But you got to get it down to 1. That's not, honestly, Elias, they're typical. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, they didn't mean to get in
people
this
who are struggling
situation,
with that
but that's
in
where they
America,
got.
but most people are. And you know what? I didn't ask where the money went. I'm just making assumptions. It could have been an emergency. It could have been medical. I don't know. My job's helping them get out of it. But I just think about that. And when I saw this article on 401ks, if they didn't have access to those funds, they would have just found another way to get out of debt.
Arguably a better way too.
It would have been a better way. It wouldn't have cost them $400,000, but the interest is clicking away at 24%. And I said, how are you going to pay that? I said, I go, what at the minimum payment? He goes like $1,400. I said, it's going to take you 27 years to pay it off.
$1,400 minimum payment, huh?
That's what he estimated. I'm guessing it's probably more.
Wow.
It's got to be.
That's less than that's less than my mortgage payment.
Yeah.
Just for mortgage.
That's just interest. Nothing. That's the 27-year payoff.
Ouch.
So with that said, if anybody out there is looking for help, hit the link in the description. We'll reach out to you and help you with any of this stuff. Do you have any closing comments for today, Elias?
Thanks for listening. See you next time.
Go Hawks.
The opinions voiced in this show are for general information purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, accountant, and financial or tax advisor prior to investing. Premier Investments and Wealth Management and LPL Financial do not provide tax advice. Please consult your tax professional. Economic forecasts set forth may not develop as predicted, and there can be no guarantee that strategies promoted will be successful. There's no guarantee that a diversified portfolio will enhance overall returns or outperform a non-diversified portfolio. Diversification does not protect against market risk. Rebalancing a portfolio may cause investors to incur tax liabilities and/or transaction costs, and does not assure profit or protect against loss. All performance referenced is historical and is not a guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and cannot be invested into directly. There is no assurance that the techniques and strategies discussed are suitable for all investors or will yield positive outcomes. The purchase of certain securities may be required to affect some of the strategies. Investing involves risks, including possible loss of principal. Rebalancing a portfolio may cause investors to incur tax liabilities and/or transaction costs, and does not assure a profit or protect against loss. Dollar cost averaging involves continuous investment in securities regardless of fluctuations in price levels. Investors should consider their ability to continue purchasing through periods of low price levels. Such a plan does not assure a profit and does not protect against loss in declining markets.